Hello and welcome to another Bendigo Life, and it's hello again to Sarah Reilly.
Hello Dennis, great to be here even though it's winter.
Well, how are you handling this cold weather? I hate winter, I'm on record of saying that many times, but you're a fan?
I love winter, I love it. I think it's I think people look better in winter. I think there's less...
Well, I can agree with that for me because you get to put more clothes on, I suppose, as an excuse to get more.
I don't know, you can just dress nicely, you can layer and you can put hats and scarves and gloves, and I love that.
Well, I look like I'm layered in summer as well. Bit of a coup this week, Sarah. I know you're a Writers' Festival fan, and an announcement this week, or as far as I know it's an announcement, that Julian Assange may come in on some sort of a line and be a guest presenter at the Writers' Festival. I mean, what a coup that is for Bendigo.
For Rosemary Sorensen started, didn't she? That's amazing. Connections. That's some interesting connections there. But,
if you want people to sit up and take notice and say, "What's this Bendigo Writers Festival?" What better way than to get somebody like him?
Perfect. Absolutely. I was just talking before the show, and I remember when I was living in London. I lived just around the corner from Harrods, and the Ecuadorian embassy is. I used to walk past it because there's a lot of embassies in that area. And I know it's not a huge place, so he's probably quite desperate to get not desperate, he's probably quite keen to get his voice out in different ways, and what a great way, a great opportunity to do it, you know.
Well, as far as publicity goes, you could do a lot worse than what he's done in terms of having the publicity that he's enjoyed while he's been in there. I mean, it's not like he's disappeared off the face of the earth, and with him has gone all the publicity. He's still had plenty of media exposure, and this Bendigo Writers Festival thing will only add to that too.
Exactly. It's been, what, 3 years, 4 years?
I've lost count now, Sarah, but it's a long time.
It's a long time. I always think, well, why doesn't the helicopter hover above and he hangs on and James Bonded out of there, but it hasn't quite happened.
Might be a few dollars in that if you could pull that one off, I'd say. The other thing I noticed with looking again at View Street and in the vicinity of the Writers' Festival, it's a big focus up there, but the Capitol Theatre are putting on a big, global warming, but not just global warming, and where I found it interesting, the subject matter, was to do with global warming and the impact it's likely to have on Bendigo. And climate change. I noticed they've got two really key speakers, David Carrolli, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, and Penny Wetton. And I only Googled them and through Wikipedia to see who they are. But these people have had real status in terms of global warming or climate change. And it's a bit of a coup, I think, to have somebody like that coming to Bendigo as well.
Well, again, it shows, how Bendigo is really taking a good position in terms of Australian history and what's happening in the world, and I think it's obviously a great stage for them to talk about that. Again, another coup. I'd be interested to know who's
orchestrated that one.
Yes.
Well, I hate to put you on the spot, but I've never asked you about the global warming climate change thing. Are you likely to be outside the Capitol Theatre that day with a placard saying that global warming is rubbish or save the planet? Do you have a firm view on it?
Well, I'm not going to be having a placard saying either, but no, look, I think something's definitely happening. I think there is global warming. I think, it's too much scientific, proof out there to avoid it. I think it would be silly not to take notice of it, don't you?
Look, I'm in the middle. I don't know, because I think it's such a small window that we're looking at, and civilization and the planet itself's been around such a very long time. I don't know how substantial the impact of... I know that we're, as a species, I'm ashamed of the impact we're having.
Things we do. Well, to the animals, for example.
Well, that's what I mean.
The deforestation, the things they're doing in some of the islands where they're just getting rid of all the beautiful forests and planting, what is it they're planting? Oil, some sort of plant that just is reaps huge, economically for them, huge rewards, but at the cost of forests.
It's terrible, isn't it? When you often think that when you see some of those landscape shots of the impact that we've had with our mining or our farming or whatever it might be, on that scale, or deforestation in South America and so on, and yet you look at the millions of other species that there are on the planet, and how you wouldn't even know they were there. You wouldn't know that there were 4 billion ants in Victoria, or there might be 4 billion in Bendigo for all I know, but you don't know that they're there.
Exactly.
Everything else manages to make its way.
and exist in the world and not affect it. Yeah.
And it's sad that we're the species that makes the biggest mess out of when
absolutely.
We're probably in a position where we can do more good than harm, but we are unfortunately the species that makes the biggest mess.
It comes back to greed, doesn't it? I think everything in terms of what our effect on the planet is mostly greed.
Well, we talked about this last week.
That's it, palm oil.
Palm oil.
Palm oil, yeah, the thing that
it's interesting you say that about the greed thing, Sarah, because that's what we talked about last week too, about this whole political thing where everyone's got their hand out, everyone wants more.
Yes.
But nobody's prepared to go without. Everybody expects a handout of one sort or another from government.
Exactly.
And really, what you've identified now is part of that too, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
Another quick thing: housing prices. I know we've continued, fortunately, see some growth in property. If you're lucky enough to own a home in Bendigo.
In Bendigo, definitely.
Yeah, but I did pick up on. I think it was in the Age Online this morning. An OECD report suggesting that Australia's headed for a big brick wall. I think, in fact, I can tell you now. I'll quote. They've said the OECD report predicts dramatic and destabilising demise for Australian property prices. Now, I know you've recently lashed out in Bendigo and upped the ante here and bought a property. Would you agree, though, that it's probably unlikely that we're going to see that sort of thing in Bendigo? Or
I don't know. There might be a flow-on effect in Bendigo, but I think they're mainly talking about, well, certainly the cities. I was up in Sydney a couple of weeks ago, and I lived there for a while, and the area that I went past, I almost didn't recognise the number of high rises for flats, apartments was just absolutely incredible. I think the glut is mainly to do with high rise, high density
I think you've
living.
actually hit a nerve there, because you're absolutely right. In other areas of the media, there've been all sorts of suggestions in the last perhaps 12 months to 18 months. Yeah. The construction and the building of and planning for apartments in the cap cities will create a glut in apartment terms.
Incredible.
But I'd agree that's perhaps unlikely then that might have a ripple-on effect here in a place like Bendigo. I would have thought where there's a bit more stability and not the level of apartments.
Let's hope that it doesn't affect us too much.
Yeah.
Although there is a lot of building going on in Bendigo, there is a lot of building.
I was interested too, Sarah. I've been watching. I guess the father of not teenagers anymore, they're older than teenage, but only you have a teenager. The two young blokes that went, I think, to South America for a holiday and ended up, one of them's gone missing, as to my knowledge, while we're doing this, still missing. But I was interested to read the latest account I saw, again on the Age Online, suggested that the nightclub manager or owner of the operation where they were the first night said that he felt that they were drug affected, and when he spoke to them about it, they said they had taken something. They weren't drug users in the traditional sense, regulars at home, or it wasn't something. It was they were on holidays and apparently took something. And it occurred to me, I thought, I lost a mate like that who wasn't a regular drug user. This guy would have been early 30s. He worked for me at the time.
Awful.
Hits a European, city with a mate and
thinks, I'll try it, whatever.
Well, took something and has a massive heart attack on the dance floor.
Oh, my God.
So I could really relate to it. And I just thought, what do you do when you've got people like that who've otherwise doing everything right? Get over there and think, we're going to party now, so we need to do that. How do you handle that with teenagers these days?
Education, I don't know. Is it maybe peer group pressure? If their friends are doing it, and they'll say, "Oh yes, I'll try it."
Peer group pressure is everything.
Is huge. You just have to educate your children about it. There's no answer really, and generally, it's mostly with males, it's that risk-taking thing.
Testosterone
more
driven,
so than females. That's been proven. It does tend to be young males that do try the riskier things. Overseas, gosh, where you've got no control,
wouldn't know what
as a parent, you wouldn't know.
No.
Oh my God.
Be frightening for the family.
And the thing is the same here. You don't know what's in those drugs, and that's the big thing. Especially, being abroad, even more so. I think you don't know you can't trust the person that's given you the thing.
Yeah. No, it really spooked me because the younger generation now, travel extensively, and I know you have
they do.
anyway.
Yes.
Well, you see, you were ahead of your time doing all your travel, but the young
and living in places. I lived in places.
Well, exactly. It wasn't just a holiday.
Yeah.
But
and
yes,
worked.
so many young people now. It's just big time travel.
Yeah.
And it spooked me. I thought, oh God, what can you do to get the message across that something like that, a once-er apparently can lead to such.
But the thing is, you hear about that being. Where was he? I can't remember who he was.
Rio de Janeiro, I think.
Okay.
Yep.
Maybe that's pertinent because of the coming up Olympics. But that sort of thing happens in Bali all the time. There's apparently I know somebody who lives there, and the number of things that go wrong with young Australians that go there is quite incredible, and you don't hear a lot about it.
Yeah.
So it's
Horror
just
stories.
be careful. Yeah.
Sarah, two last quick things. I'm not sure whether you're touched by this or not. The Safe Schools program. I know you still have somebody at school, but probably more advanced secondary. Is it something you've had any exposure to? I asked the question because Ros Ward has been stood down as lead or running the whole Safe Schools program.
Yeah.
And I mean, wherever I've looked, particularly online, there's either a really strong case from really strong-minded people from one side of the equation saying a lot of the issues being dealt with are nobody else's business other than the children's in their family environment. It's mum and dad. It's pushing an agenda. There's been suggestions of the LGBT agenda that in some cases trying to encourage people to believe this or believe that.
That's right.
Yeah, in a very general sense. But on the other hand, you've got other people with a lot of testimonials online saying, you've saved my life. I had this confused view of who I was in a sexual sense as a child, and it's helped greatly. So I don't know. I just wonder whether you'd had any experience with it or exposure to the family.
Not
directly.
Not my personally, but I do know that I think that whole thing within schools is important to have. And as I have an education background, I think it's certainly got to be a balanced thing. It can't be, as you were saying.
But is it appropriate to be in schools anyway? I've overlooked that fact that you do teach as well and have taught. Is it something isn't it better in the home?
But a lot of people don't talk about that sort of thing. Either they're too busy, or they're not interested, or they're not communicating with their children, or their children don't listen to them. So perhaps it's got to come via someone else, and the only other someone else if it's not outside the family, is via school to get hopefully a balanced view of both sides. So unfortunately these days school has to do a lot more than perhaps it used to in terms of educating the whole person, not just academically. And I think a lot of schools embrace that anyway. But I think it's important to have guidance at school. Definitely.
Last topic this week, I was amazed, and you would have been too, I know you love your coffee, to see the deconstructed coffee, as they called it, where a supposed possibility as a trend or a fad might be to have Sarah Reilly sit down for a coffee at a coffee shop and end up being served the hot water, the coffee, and say, for example, the milk or whatever it might be, or however you're having your coffee. And I think they called it deconstructed coffee. What do you make of that as somebody who's drunk coffee all over the world? Well,
do you know what you half expect? Is someone to come along in a kimono and have almost like a tea ceremony. The next thing will be, it's almost like that. It's like, okay, we're doing coffee, we're doing all these different types of coffee. What can we do next?
And I think boy, are we doing coffee,
I think it's another marketing way of having coffee.
So a bit of a left field thing that perhaps won't take off.
Well, I don't know. It may, but it's certainly just another way of perhaps some of the coffee snobs. There's the coffee snobs around. I
am one. No,
I think.
I hope not. I hope not.
The ones that. I don't know. You know
what I know exactly what you mean, but
I think they might partake and love it. But
well, I might make a point tomorrow morning, Saturday morning. We often go down Bath Lane for a coffee anyway.
Try it.
I might ask for a deconstructed coffee
and see what they say.
Yeah, get all these dirty looks. You can imagine people saying, "Well, I won't say what they'll say."
Has it started in Bendigo?
Not that I'm aware of. So there's a challenge for you. You can get out there and start it this weekend.
The deconstructed coffee. Deconstruct it. Sounds like a negative, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
It does. I'll take the coffee away.
Well, I'll keep my eye out for you with your deconstructed coffee, and I'll be the first one to come over and spill sugar or something all over you, probably too. Sarah, thanks for taking the time again this week during Keith's absence as well. Really appreciate it.
I've been following his travels, his pictures.
Beautiful scenery around Salzburg in Austria.
It is a beautiful place.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
So he's picked the right time of year to do it.
He has.
And the right place to go as well.
He has, yeah.
All right, thanks again, Sarah, for catching up this week.
Welcome.
Thank you for joining us, so we'll see you again next week.